My ex used me to raise her children while seeing someone else, so I cut ties and secured everything I've worked hard for. I'm a 33-year-old guy, and I used to believe that love meant carrying the people you care about, no matter how heavy it gets. I've always been the reliable one, the guy everyone calls when they need help moving, fixing a car, or getting bailed out of a tough spot. I built my life on stability, a steady job, a small house, and a quiet sense of pride in knowing I could take care of myself. But when I met Rachel, all of that changed. She was a single mother of two, exhausted but beautiful in a way that made you want to protect her. We met at a community event through mutual friends. She was juggling her kids, a phone call, and a tray of snacks all at once. I remember stepping in to help, and the way she smiled at me felt like warmth I hadn't realized I was missing. My friends warned me, of course. "Man, don't get too involved," they said. "Single moms come with baggage." But I didn't care. Rachel wasn't baggage, she was strength wrapped in softness. She talked about how hard it was to balance work and motherhood, and I saw myself in her struggle. Before long, I was spending evenings at her place, fixing the leaky sink, reading bedtime stories to her kids, and feeling something I hadn't felt in years: purpose. I'd pick up groceries, cover the occasional school expense, and convince myself it was love, not charity. When her daughter called me dad for the first time, my chest tightened in a way I can't even describe. It felt right, like I was exactly where I was meant to be. I thought I'd finally found the kind of love that built families. Not broke them, but love, as I'd learned soon enough, can be the heaviest thing you'll ever carry. After that moment, everything between us moved fast. Within a few months, I was at Rachel's place more than my own. Her house started to feel like home. My coffee mug sat beside hers on the counter. My tools filled her garage, and the kids ran to me when they scraped their knees. It wasn't official. I'd slipped into the role of dad without anyone needing to say it. "I don't know what I'd do without you," Rachel said one night as we sat on the porch. Her voice cracked just enough to make me want to promise her forever. And I did not with words, but with actions. I started paying the electricity bill when she was short on cash, dropped the kids off at school so she could sleep in, and took extra shifts at work to make sure her birthdays, the kids' birthdays, and even random Tuesdays felt special. When she suggested I move in to make things easier for everyone, it felt natural. I told myself it wasn't about convenience. It was about love, about building something real. At first it was perfect. The laughter at dinner, the small chaos of breakfast before school, the goodnight hugs. It felt like the family I'd always wanted. But slowly, small cracks began to show. Rachel started going out more, saying she needed girl time or just a break. I didn't question it. I wanted her to feel trusted. Still, some nights stretched late into early mornings, and I'd lie awake, glancing at the clock, wondering why she hadn't called. When she finally came home, smelling faintly of wine and perfume, she'd smile sleepily and whisper, "You're too good to me." I told myself she was right. Maybe I was. And maybe that was the problem I refused to see. It started subtly. Little things that only someone paying attention would notice. Rachel's laughter changed. It wasn't the same carefree sound that used to fill the kitchen when we cooked together. It was quieter now, reserved. Like she was saving her best smiles for someone else. She began spending more time on her phone, always tilted slightly away from me. If I asked who she was talking to, she'd roll her eyes. "It's just my sister," she'd say. Or work stuff. Relax. Her tone wasn't sharp. But there was a new edge in it, a wall forming between us that I didn't understand. The house still looked the same, but it felt different. I'd come home from work to find her sitting on the couch scrolling through her phone, barely glancing up when I kissed her cheek. The kids still ran to me when I opened the door, and that small burst of joy was the only thing that kept me grounded sometimes. I'd catch her sneaking glances at the clock when I talked about my day, like she was waiting for something or someone. One night, I reached for her hand as we watched a movie. She flinched just slightly before forcing a smile. I tried to brush it off. Maybe she was just tired. Maybe she needed space. I told myself not to be paranoid, that good men trust their partners. But then, while cleaning up the kids' drawings one afternoon, I froze. A crayon sketch, Mommy and another man. The man wasn't me. The stick figures held hands, smiling under a bright yellow sun. My name wasn't anywhere on the paper. I stared at it for a long time, trying to convince myself it didn't mean what it looked like. But deep down, I already knew something was breaking. That drawing haunted me for days. I couldn't stop wondering who the man was. Every time I looked at Rachel, I saw the same easy smile she gave everyone, the one that now felt rehearsed. Finally, one night while she was folding laundry, I asked as gently as I could, "Hey, who's the guy the kids were talking about in that drawing?" Her hands froze for a second before she laughed it off. "You're seriously jealous of a crayon sketch? God, you've been so weird lately." Her tone stung. Not because she was angry, but because it was dismissive. I tried explaining that it just bothered me, that I wasn't accusing her of anything. But she cut me off. "Maybe if you trusted me, instead of acting like my ex, we wouldn't be having this conversation," she snapped, slamming a pile of shirts onto the bed. I stood there, stunned, feeling smaller by the second. Somehow, she had flipped everything around, and I found myself apologizing after that. I stopped asking questions. Whenever she'd go out, she'd say, "Don't wait up," with that same sarcastic smile. And I'd just nod, pretending I wasn't dying inside. To make up for the tension, I threw myself deeper into helping school runs, grocery shopping, fixing the leaky roof. The kids still looked at me like I was their hero, and that was enough to keep me going. But her absence grew louder. She'd come home late, smelling faintly of expensive cologne and wine, saying she was helping a friend move or just needed air. Then one evening a mutual friend mentioned seeing her at a restaurant. "She looked happy," he said casually. "Who was that guy she was with?" "The tall one?" I didn't respond. I couldn't. My stomach dropped, and for the first time I realized I wasn't imagining things. I was being lied to, right to my face. After that conversation, something in me shifted. I started noticing details I'd ignored before, the new perfume on her dresser, the sudden wardrobe upgrades, the way she smiled at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. She wasn't trying to hide anymore. She was just confident I wouldn't question her again. And for a while, she was right. I kept telling myself not to jump to conclusions. Love makes you want to believe the best in people, even when every sign screams otherwise. Still, I couldn't shake the unease crawling under my skin. I began paying quiet attention, checking the time she left versus when she came back, listening for inconsistencies in her stories. One night, as she headed out to run errands, I asked if she wanted me to come along. Her expression flickered surprise, then annoyance. "You don't need to babysit me," she said, forcing a laugh. "Go relax. You work too hard." Her words sounded kind, but her tone was ice. Later, while balancing our finances, I noticed something off. The joint account we'd been using had several unexplained withdrawals, large ones labeled personal expenses. My stomach tightened. I printed the statements, highlighting each transaction, but I didn't confront her right away. Not yet. Instead, I started documenting everything, every receipt, every text, every lie that felt too polished. It wasn't about revenge. It was self-preservation. I didn't want to end up broke and broken if my gut turned out to be right. That weekend, while cleaning out the car, I found an unfamiliar key in the glove compartment. It wasn't for our house, not for the office, not for anything I recognized. When I asked Rachel about it later, she barely looked up from her phone. "Oh, that. Probably an old one from my ex's place." But her voice trembled, just enough for me to know she was lying. The key stayed on my mind for days. Every time I saw it sitting on the counter, I felt this gnawing sense that it belonged to a part of Rachel's life I wasn't supposed to see. One evening, while she was getting ready to go meet a friend from work, she left her phone on the table, face down. I shouldn't have looked. I told myself that 1,000 times later. But something in me already knew the truth was hiding there. I picked it up, hands shaking, and the screen lit up with a message that made my chest tighten. "Can't wait to see you tonight, babe. I've missed you." The sender's name was saved under something generic, Mark Work. My heart sank. I opened the thread and what I found confirmed everything I didn't want to believe. Months of messages, dates, inside jokes. Photos of them together, her smiling in ways she hadn't smiled around me in a long time. She wasn't just cheating. She'd been building another life. In one text, she told him, "He's just a roommate who helps with bills. Don't worry, I'm only with him for the kid's sake." My breath caught. Every word I'd ever said to her, every act of love, was reduced to convenience. I wasn't her partner. I was her safety net. That night, I didn't confront her. I couldn't. I sat in the dark, phone in hand, trying to process how the woman I'd sacrificed so much for could lie so easily. I watched her walk through the door later, humming to herself. Smiling like nothing had changed, she kissed my cheek and whispered, "You're the best thing that ever happened to me." And in that moment, all I could think was, she didn't mean it. Not once. The person I'd built my life around never existed. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment we'd ever shared. Every "I love you" that now felt like a performance. By morning, something inside me snapped. I wasn't angry anymore, I was hollow. I waited until the kids were at school, then I asked Rachel to sit down. She looked up from her coffee, slightly annoyed. "What's wrong now?" She said. I took out her phone and placed it on the table. "Who's Mark?" Her eyes flickered just for a second before she laughed. "You're unbelievable," she said, shaking her head. "You went through my phone?" "I did," I said quietly, "and I saw everything." The room fell silent. I expected panic, guilt, something. But instead, she smirked. "You knew what this was?" she said coldly. "Don't act surprised. You wanted to play house? I just let you." Her words hit harder than any punch could. I felt my throat close, my vision blur. "I took care of your kids, Rachel. I paid your bills." She stood, cutting me off. "You chose to. I never asked you to be their dad." The casual cruelty in her tone broke something I didn't know could break. When the kids came home later, she acted like nothing had happened, cooked dinner, smiled, kissed them goodnight, while I sat there, invisible in my own home. That night, she told me she was taking the kids to her mother's for a few days. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't look back. When the door closed, the silence was unbearable. The walls I'd painted, the rooms I'd fixed, the laughter that once filled this house, it all felt like a cruel joke. I sat alone on the couch, surrounded by the ghosts of a family that was never mine. And for the first time in years, I realized I had nothing left. Not love, not trust, not even myself. The first few days after she left were a blur. The house was too quiet. Every sound echoed like a reminder of what I'd lost. Her coffee mug sat untouched. The kids' toys scattered across the living room floor, their laughter replaced by silence. I kept checking my phone, half expecting a message from her saying it was all a mistake, that she was sorry, but nothing came. Instead, I got a letter in the mail, a stack of overdue bills addressed to me. When I opened them, my stomach turned. The utilities, the rent, even her car insurance, all under my name. Somewhere between helping and trusting, she'd tied me to everything. My savings were nearly gone. I spent hours tracing through receipts and documents, realizing how deep her manipulation ran. She'd used my stability as her safety net emotionally, financially, legally, and when she was done, she simply walked away, leaving me to clean the wreckage. That night I sat at the kitchen table, the soft hum of the refrigerator the only sound. I looked around at the life I'd built and finally saw it for what it was, mine in labor, hers in benefit. Something shifted inside me then. The pain didn't vanish, but it hardened into resolve. I wasn't going to let her take any more from me. Not my money. Not my peace. Not my future. I opened my laptop, contacted a lawyer, and began untangling every thread she'd woven around me. It wasn't revenge. It was survival, and for the first time in months, I felt something close to control, because if Rachel used me for stability, then I'd make damn sure she'd never use me or anyone like that again. The lawyer didn't sugarcoat it. It was going to take time. Rachel had been clever, adding my name to things without my consent, creating the illusion of shared ownership. But slowly, piece by piece, I started reclaiming my life. I froze the joint account, changed every password, and redirected my paycheck to a new bank. Each click, Each form signed felt like taking back a piece of myself she'd stolen. When I texted Rachel to tell her she'd need to start handling her own bills, she replied almost instantly, "Wow, so this is how you repay me after everything I've been through." I didn't respond. That silence must have infuriated her, because the messages kept coming. Guilt trips, threats, even pleas. "The kids miss you. You're abandoning them too?" she wrote one night. I stared at that line for a long time before replying, "I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm just done being used." She called minutes later, voice trembling with that same sweetness she used to disarm me. "Can we just talk? Please, don't do this." But I could hear it in her tone, desperation, not love. She wasn't afraid of losing me. She was afraid of losing control. I blocked her number that night. The silence that followed was different this time, not heavy, but freeing. I started sleeping again, eating properly, even laughing at things I'd forgotten I liked. A week later, I saw her outside the kids' school, pacing with her phone in hand. Our eyes met briefly, and she looked away first. That was the moment I knew she realized I wasn't coming back. For the first time in years, my life didn't revolve around fixing someone else's chaos. It was mine again. Entirely mine. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. About a month after cutting Rachel off, I got a message from an unknown number. "Hey, this is Mark. We need to talk." My chest tightened when I saw the name. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. But curiosity, and maybe a lingering need for truth, made me reply. We met at a coffee shop near my work. He was taller than I expected. Early 40s, clean-cut, nervous. He didn't waste time. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't know about you until recently." Then he pulled out his phone and showed me screenshots, messages from Rachel trashing me, calling me a loser who's obsessed with her, pretending I was some clingy ex who wouldn't leave her alone. It hit me like a punch. She'd lied to both of us, building two different lives, each one propping up the other. He told me he'd been paying for trips, dinners, even part of her rent. When he confronted her, she'd spun the same manipulative lines she'd used on me. But this time, he didn't buy it. "She's been using both of us," he said quietly. "I thought you should know." We compared stories, dates, timelines, lies, and everything matched perfectly. Rachel hadn't just betrayed me. She'd built her entire lifestyle out of deceit. A week later, fate gave us both an opportunity. There was a parent-teacher meeting at the kids' school. Rachel showed up dressed to impress, playing the role of the perfect mom. Mark and I arrived separately, but when she saw us both there, her face went white. The whispers started almost instantly. Teachers, parents, everyone noticed. Her mask cracked right there, under the fluorescent lights. She tried to smile, to play it off, but the truth was already spreading. For once, I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Everyone finally saw who she really was. After that night, Rachel vanished from my life almost completely. The few times she tried to reach out, it was through curt, transactional messages about the kids. Nothing more. I kept my replies polite but brief, refusing to be pulled into her chaos again. The silence that used to suffocate me now felt like peace. I started focusing on myself for the first time in years. Therapy helped me unpack the mess she'd left behind, not just the betrayal, but the guilt I carried for letting it happen. My therapist said something that stuck with me. "You can't save someone who benefits from drowning you." That line played in my head every time I felt the urge to check her social media or wonder what she was doing. Work became my anchor. I threw myself into new projects, took promotions I'd turned down before, and started saying no to anything that didn't serve me. On weekends, I found quiet joy in simple things: cooking breakfast without rushing, reading, or walking by the lake where I used to take her kids. One day, months later, I ran into one of Rachel's old neighbors. She told me Rachel had moved again, alone this time. The new guy she'd been seeing left her after discovering her lies. There was no satisfaction in hearing it, just a strange sense of closure. Rachel still tried to use the kids to guilt me, sometimes asking for favors or help with a few bills, but I didn't fall for it anymore. I cared about the kids deeply, but I kept my boundaries. I wasn't angry anymore, just done. Because sometimes walking away isn't losing, it's finally refusing to be used. And for the first time in years, my reflection looked like mine again. A year passed before I realized just how far I'd come. The house that once echoed with Rachel's lies now felt alive again, warm, quiet, and entirely mine. I'd repainted the walls, replaced the furniture, and most importantly, cleared every trace of her from my life. What used to be a place of heartbreak had become a symbol of survival. One morning, I got a call I didn't expect. It was Rachel's oldest child, shy, hesitant, but genuine. "Mom said we can't stay in the apartment anymore," she said quietly. "I just wanted to say thank you. You were the only one who ever stayed." Her words hit me harder than any revenge could. I told her I'd always be there for them, not for Rachel, but for the kids who never asked to be part of her lies. I didn't take them in, but I helped them where I could. College advice, small gestures, just enough to remind them that stability still exists. A few months later, I heard Rachel had lost the apartment. The landlord foreclosed after months of unpaid rent. She'd burned through every bridge she built, the men, the friends, even her family. It wasn't karma I felt watching her fall. It was peace. One evening, I sat on the porch, coffee in hand, watching the sunset bleed across the sky. I thought about how much I'd given time, money, love, and how little of it had been returned. But instead of bitterness, all I felt was gratitude. Because her betrayal didn't destroy me, it refined me. She used me to build a life she couldn't sustain. I used the wreckage she left behind to build one that finally belonged to me. And for the first time in years, I wasn't carrying anyone. I was standing, steady, unburdened, and free.